welcome to the latest edition of the Bison video blog. Along with Jeff Kolpak, I'm Dom Izzo. Here we are in early February. The madness of March is approaching, which is the best time of year, in my opinion, as college basketball season really starts to hit in high gear. Of course, the Summit League season, we've crossed the midway point, Jeff, and now things really start to get interesting. It almost seems at the top of both the men's and the women's, they've started to separate themselves between Oral Roberts, South Dakota State, NDSU on the men's side. Last night, the South Dakota State women beat Oral Roberts by 20 in Brookings, and now it seems like it's going to be the Jacks as the #1 seed on the women's side as we have just a month to go before Summit League tournament time.
Hold on. First of all, I need to tweet. Behind the scenes in the Bison media video
doing
blog.
That stuff.
We're all about Twitter.
Yes.
Fargo FGO sports writer is
Dom Izzo WDAY. Ryan puts it up for us every week. So anyway,
two-horse race,
yes.
Absolutely in the women's race. Oral Roberts and South Dakota State, and South Dakota State actually I think has taken a couple noses lead in that. Men's side, NDSU's lurking. I think they're lurking there. They're up to 9th in the nation in field goal percentage. Seem to have found maybe a different starting lineup and resurgence there. If I'm Oral Roberts and if I'm South Dakota State, I don't know if I want to play this team because they can still play good defense.
And they can get hot at the right time. And if you're playing your best ball in mid to late February into March, that's a team you do not want to face. The Bison men will head to UMKC on Thursday, then a trip to South Dakota for the first time in Vermilion since 2004. That comes up on Saturday with that game with the Jacks lurking. I want to go back to something you just said about the tweaks to the starting lineup. It happened after the loss at IPFW. 2 weeks ago, you said that was a must-win game. They had to win it. They lost that game. Saul Phillips blows up the starting lineup, puts Drew Lundberg and Eric Carlson, the two seniors on the team, in, and for the first time they win at Oakland in the next game.
You got to give it up for those two seniors because it couldn't have been easy sitting on the bench watching all these younger kids doing it. I mean, it's not easy on anybody. And Carlson, you have one of the staple players. He's been there for 4 years now. When he was recruited by, I believe Tim Miles was when he first started recruiting, he was recruited to be, by the time you're a senior, you're going to be the leader, you're the captain. And he got hit in the mouth, spent most of broke his jaw, spent a good portion of 2 months on the bench, tried to work himself. He lost so much weight because he couldn't eat. And you had to wonder if he's ever going to be a factor all season. Well, he's making a late rally here.
And he's played well. He played well in that game at Oakland. Lundberg played well there. They came back. The South Dakota State game was a game where the Bison did not play well, had a chance to win, and didn't. Oral Roberts came in here, and I think there's two differences between what Oral Roberts does and what South Dakota State does. I think SDSU is based on Nate Walters. He makes the rest of his teammates better. Oral Roberts has 5 really, really good players.
And really good athletes.
Yeah.
And again, but a Summit League tournament, it's not in Tulsa anymore, so that gives NDSU a shot.
Speaking of South Dakota, though, and this is a trip to Vermilion for the Bison, your best recollections of the Bison going down there? It's a place where they've had some success, but also have struggled in the past, too.
I always struggled against the matchup zone of Dave Boots and the Coyotes. It really gave him some fits over the years. I didn't see that when the Coyotes came up here. I didn't think that was a factor. I don't even recall if they actually went to it full time either. So maybe it's the fact that NDSU has better athletes to get some penetration against that zone.
Also in there as well as that bracket buster game after the South Dakota State game on February 15th. They get Western Michigan at home before they wrap up the regular season with 2 in the Summit League. It looks right now, you mentioned on my radio show last night, the Bison sit pretty comfortably in the 3rd seed. There is the possibility, and you know, us TV guys, we always like to look ahead, that you could have the chance of NDSU and SDSU in the Summit League semis in Sioux Falls.
Get your tickets early. And if football was any indication, probably don't rely on the allotted tickets.
That should be a lot of fun. Speaking of football, we found out yesterday that NDSU will start spring ball on March 24th. The spring game is set for April 21, so your off-season lasts about 6 days. And for the Bison, I will ask you that, though, because the season went so long. Then the coaches are out recruiting. Here we are now on February 7th as we tape this. They basically get maybe, 2 to 3 weeks before they have to start planning again to get right back on the field. Is this almost too much to put on their plates?
That's a good question. Maybe we should get head coach Craig Bull in the Bison Media Blog studios, and we can tweet about it too. They're in currently film evaluation mode, I believe is what they call it, and we have a lot of questions heading into spring football. And it just seemed like we were in Frisco, Texas, but that's just the way of the world, I guess, when you win a title, and those questions will get answered before the spring football gets started.
You know, we touched on it last week. I mentioned it as the start of 2012. I think Esley Thornton is the biggest question, not only on our minds, I think also with the fans' minds. When you ever have a quarterback, especially as touted as Thornton was, and redshirted this year, he got in a couple of games, both blowout games. He did play in the national championship game when Jensen had to be attended to, and you can't stay in the game after you get a timeout called for you. I think that's the biggest issue. But here's the thing at corner that I'll ask you about, and then the secondary. Brendan Pierre probably be back. He sat out this year after his academic issues. That's a guy who started for 2 years. He started as a true freshman, you'll remember. So he's coming in as a junior. You bring Colton Hegel back. You've got Christian Dudzik and Marcus Williams, and you have Pierre who already started. Maybe the coach is saying, okay, well, maybe we don't need necessarily move Esley to the secondary.
Maybe, maybe not, but I think free safety is open, I believe, with Danny Eves and the departure of John Pike, 2 seniors. If I'm the coaches, here's how I sell Esley Thornton. He's 6'3", he's a good athlete, he can a nice vertical jump, one of the best athletes the state's seen in a long time. I'm saying if you're going to make the next level, being NFL, this is a selling point now. What's your better chance, free safety or quarterback?
And now, granted, in quarterback, you're one play away from getting hurt. So Brock Jensen, and after how great he played last season, he gutted it out with turf toe for the last 6-7 games of the season for NDSU. And they believe fully that Carson Wentz, who redshirted this year, the 6'5" monster out of Bismarck Century, is the next quarterback. And they just went and got a kid that went 36-5, I think, in Crete, Nebraska, and Derek McGinnis, to go along with Ryan Stanford. There's a huge backload back there at quarterback that NDSU has never had in their Division I years.
Still, you got to put your best athletes out on the field somehow, and I think we saw that in the kickoff coverage where NDSU. That's what they never had in prior years. They never had those guys that were just great athletes, could go down and cover. The Sam Houston State coach said as much. So that's the best kickoff coverage team I've ever seen.
The depth was there, and that's what we've seen over the last couple of years. Speaking of best athletes that have come out of Minnesota in recent years is John Crockett, who has spent 2 years to try to get eligible. For our viewers out there who don't know the story of Crockett, he was part of that great 2010 class out of Totino Grace High School, had issues academically qualifying, and you can pick up the story from there as he tries to get on the field.
Well, he's been with the team since the fall. I mean, he's been integrated into the team concept. He's filmed practices. He's part of the lifting. So the guys really like him. He's really fit in well. And now it's just a matter of him getting into the mold of a game mode. And that could take a while. I mean, he's going to have to prove himself in practice. But I would say he's 80% of the way there. And
they did not recruit a running back, the Bison didn't, during this recruiting season. That leads me to believe they believe he'll be fully eligible come fall camp of 2012.
Right, and he's obviously got the ability. You have Samuel Jury, you have Derek Lang,
Matt Jones.
And Matt Jones is waiting in the wings as a redshirt.
They just picked up another redshirt from Eric Perkins as well, or another walk-on from Eric Perkins out of Wisconsin.
I love his film, by the way.
Really good. All the guys look great on film until we actually see what happens when they hit the field. I also want to address special teams, one of my favorites, because the Bison will be breaking in 2 new players at that spot come spring. That's in Ben LeCompte, who they recruited out of Barrington, Illinois. That's Samuel Jury's hometown. And Adam Keller, who's spent the last 2 years, he redshirted one and then didn't kick this year, out of Pennsylvania as their new place kicker. And there's massive question marks there going forward. They had last year. I think Ryan Jastrom was mine, and he solved that. He had a fabulous year. Matt Voigtlander had a fabulous year. That's a big question mark for 2012.
But Ryan Jastrom was a senior. Adam Keller is coming in as a redshirt freshman, and that's a big difference.
Defensive leadership. You mentioned this on your blog post yesterday. The Bison are graduating quite a few on the defensive side of the ball. Chad Wilson, who is your defensive MVP, Coulter Boyer, who was sensational last year, Preston Evans in the middle, all of them, and John Pike, all of them not coming back for 2012.
Scott Swiatinski, you can go on the line. They lost a lot of defensive players who I think really made a difference, not so much on the field, which of course they did, but I think they made a difference in the locker room, in the leadership, and those are things that you just can't coach.
An early candidate in your own mind to see who would step up in that as we look forward to 2012? Cole Jurek has started for 2 years now.
Yeah, you're going to probably need some juniors. I'm looking at maybe a linebacker or something coming up.
If Brandon Jemison, that's another question. He'll be a senior this coming year.
Yep. Grant Olson, I think he's got great leadership qualities. That's what the coaches have told me, so maybe he's one guy. Marcus Williams.
Yeah,
he's going to be a junior.
They already look to him already as one of the team studs, and he certainly has proved that on the field. And being a junior next season, I think that's the guy that probably you put a big asterisk next to.
One of those interior guys too. You know, it's somebody's going to have to step up.
Yep.
That's the bottom line.
Here we are in the middle of basketball season, and we can't get away from football.
You brought it up. You brought it up.
I did, but the viewers demand it here. It's 24/7. We found out the football season never ends. The Bison basketball teams we mentioned off the top heading to Kansas City and then South Dakota, and we know the big matchup with South Dakota State looming for the Bison men next week. That should be fabulous. For Jeff Kolpak, I'm Dom Izzo. This is the latest edition of the Bison Video Blog.